Hello, everybody, and welcome to Realty Success. I'm so excited to have everybody here today. We're going to have such a fun show. Um, Joining us today, we have a guest expert. She's a realtor out of California. Her name is Maureen McDermut. She specializes in the luxury real estate space, and we're going to learn so much from her today about home inspections. And then also joining us this week, we have our regular co-host, and I'd like to introduce everybody now. And first, Angela Brown. Angela, would you come along and introduce yourself to everyone?
That doesn't do anything.
Yes, I will. And I am so excited to join you guys today. For those of you that are just joining us, I'm Angela Brown. I've been a professional house cleaner for the last 32 years. I run one of the largest training companies in the world for house cleaners and maids. And so I get to do a lot of move in, move out cleans. Now, as you know, in the real estate industry, there's a lot of cleaning that has to happen in order for you to sell your home. So I'm really excited because I get to be here today as a guest expert. And I also get to learn from our other realtors that are here today. So I'm really excited. And I would like to hand it over to Erin Brown, a realtor out of San Antonio, Texas. Erin, how are you today?
I'm fantastic. Thank you so much. It's so great to be here today. I'm a realtor out of San Antonio, Texas, and I'm really looking forward to today's show.
Great. Thanks so much, Erin. And also joining us is Regina Brown, also out of San Antonio, Texas.
It's all right.
Hello. It's great to see everybody today. I'm a co-host here on Realty Success Hub. We're out of San Antonio. We do real estate all over the state of Texas. So we would love to help anybody buy and sell property. So shoot us a call.
Great. So good to see you, Regina. And last but not least is our guest expert today. As I said, her name's Maureen McDermut. She's a realtor out of California and in the luxury real estate market. And we're so excited to hear from you today and learn about what's going on in your world.
Great. I'm excited to answer questions and anything that comes up, we'll kind of an open book, happy to help.
So you're out of Santa Barbara, California. And so what is the real estate market like there?
Well, first, let me tell the audience, sometimes people don't know where Santa Barbara is a small community, probably 85,000 people. And we're located about approximately an hour and a half north of Santa Barbara, north of Los Angeles by car, and about 6 hours south of San Francisco. So we're on the central coast. And it's a seaside town that does have a university. And so we have burgeoning businesses. The largest industry here is the travel and luxury, people coming here for vacations. The largest employer is UCSB. They're our local University of California, Santa Barbara. And Raytheon is the second. So what is it like? When I first moved here 22 years ago to start selling real estate in Santa Barbara, it was for the newlyweds and the nearly dead. And the reason they called it that is because we have 4 colleges here. We have a Christian college, Westmont. We have Santa Barbara City College, which is the #1 city college in the nation. And that's about 20,000 students. Then we have, of course, the university. And then we have Brooks Institute of Photography. So a lot of kids would live here and love it because who wouldn't? Our median temperature is 72 degrees. Although it was very mild this winter because of our rains. And then it was nearly dead because when people were retired, they could come back and live here. But now we have a lot of tech industry has started. And because people can work remotely, they have the opportunity to live here. So to answer your question, how is real estate doing? It's doing really well. We have not a lot between Carpinteria and Goleta, which is where UCSB is. It's probably a 15-mile distance. And the shortest distance from the ocean to the mountains is 1.5 miles. So we're not talking about a lot of real estate to sell. So how are we doing? We, like a lot of people in the nation, are very low inventory and very high demand. The interest rates don't impact us as much. It certainly impacts certain price sectors. In Montecito, which is a segment that I sell, which is a small community, probably about 8,500 people. 65% of our sales are cash. And in Santa Barbara, about 38%. So interest rates haven't impacted us as much as maybe other parts of the nation, but we are impacted by low inventory. So I hope hopefully answers your question. Sorry, it was a long answer.
No, that was great information. And yeah, I'm the realtor out of the Charlotte, North Carolina area, and our inventory has been low. We are feeling the impact of the interest rates, but again, it's some areas of the country are feeling it much more than others. I'm sure
Right.
in San Antonio, you guys are feeling some of it too.
We're at about 3 months of inventory at the moment, average of 500 sales a week.
Wow. That sounds like a lot to me. What would you normally average in inventory?
Normally, we're up about 100 homes on that in a normal market, and so we're down just a little bit for sure.
Yeah.
So a lot has to do with the interest rates, as you know, and
Of course.
Right. So with the low inventory, it affects the negotiation process in homes. And I know a lot of buyers were buying homes, putting offers in sight unseen, and waiving certain contingencies. So Maureen, we're going to talk today. We're going to focus on home inspections. And I know some people will think, okay, I need to buy this home and not do an inspection, against every advice of every realtor everywhere. So can you talk with us a little bit about your take on home inspections?
Yes, I can. And to answer or to companies owned here in Santa Barbara that they are not allowed to go in contingency free. Their lawyers have said, we do not want that. You are not to be contingency free. You need at least some kind of inspection. So yes, people will go in contingency free. You don't see that as much today. I was on Broker's Caravan earlier and I saw a house, and what people are doing, and I encourage, is if you think you have regardless of if you think it's going to sell immediately or not, when I have a listing, I encourage my sellers to get all the inspections done. Because when I go on the market, I want the buyer to know that we went on the market knowing what any flaw might be with the house, i.e., all the home inspections are done. The sewer lateral has been done. The pest inspection has been ordered. We know what the insurance cost is going to be. So it's valuable in more than one way to have your inspections done. It lets everybody know what is the condition of a house up front. And it also lets a buyer know that we went on the market at a specific price, knowing that maybe there's $10,000 of past work to be done. So it's really important in many ways.
Well, Regina mentioned, we had a show a couple months ago, I think, Regina, and you mentioned that you had a client who was putting an offer on a home with a home inspection, but she wanted to have an additional one done as well. Am I remembering that correctly?
She did. She felt like it was questionable and they were hiding something. But this particular client was also very overly cautious about everything. And we went under contract on multiple homes until there was an inspection report where there were no repairs needed.
Wow. Almost unheard of.
That was just that client. So, but out of curiosity, what do you recommend as far as a person finding a good, reputable inspector?
Are you asking me?
Yes.
Well, I mean, basically, I have a repertoire of resources that I have. I mean, having sold real estate here for 22 years in Santa Barbara, I have a litany of vendors that I use and have easy access to them. If I'm representing a buyer, and I will go to my go-tos. I think the best thing to do if you don't know who to ask or who to use, ask a reputable agent in town, whether you're in a deal with them or not, and say, hey, who are you guys using? Who do you like today? Who is still really good? Who is not phoning it in, but doing a really good inspection? And I use different inspectors, I don't want to say depending on the price of the house, depending on the complexity of the house. I have different inspectors that I'll use. So how to find one? Simply talk to the people that use them every day. Call up agents and say, hey, who are you liking today? in Santa Barbara, we're very user friendly with each other. It's a small community, so it's important to help your associate because they may need you. You may need them next time. So we just ask each other.
That's great. That's great that you guys have that
Yeah.
camaraderie.
And I know that's not everywhere. My sister sells in Los Angeles, and it's a little more cutthroat. We're not as cutthroat up here, and we help each other. But ask the people that are actually hiring them.
So you mentioned you have different inspectors based on the complexity of the home. And I
Yeah.
know you deal a lot in the luxury market. Can you give us a little insight into what an inspection is like on a luxury home? How it may be
Yes.
different from a starter home or
I can, and I can speak to both because I don't. Yes, I do luxury, but I sell everything. I will sell everything. I have one criteria, and that's the person I'm working with is nice. No attitude. No attitude.
Yay.
I won't. I just won't. 8 years ago, I stopped taking people on that were just people you don't want to work with, and for a variety of reasons. And I'm talking. I have fired people that want $10 million houses. I don't care. I just want to be surrounded by good energy. So I do sell everything. I'll speak to the luxury. I have a gentleman I use, Jay. He's all of our preferred in the luxury. He is a general contractor. As actually most of our home inspectors are general contractors. So I prefer that they have that license because they know what they're talking about. Some people are inspectors and they've gotten a certificate and they have bought the franchise for the home inspection company across the nation. There are many of them, and they bought the franchise and they can do the job. On a luxury, I like to use Jay because he is a general contractor. He also does a lot of inspections on commercial buildings. So I like the fact that he is familiar with more technical plumbing systems, more technical electrical systems, and because it gets a little bit more complicated. So really, it's not that you need a specific person for a luxury, but I do tend to get somebody who is a general contractor that does a lot of inspections, and he knows what he's looking for. He's also seasoned. He understands the difference between knob and tubing and the current electric that we use today. It's important that you use somebody that understands what all this is. You have a question. What is knob and tube?
I do. And my question is, and this comes from the cleaning end of things. I know that many of the higher end homes have those whole home vac systems where there's a vacuum hose that just pulls out of the wall. And I mean, from a house cleaner, I hate those because I'm afraid I'm going to vacuum something up and then it breaks. And then there's no vacuum in the house, right? We're used to using a smaller one.
Go on.
I was going to say, what are some things that are true for a luxury home that may not be true for most of the homes that we are in?
You bring up a good point. A lot of the houses do still have the central vac where you plug it in, plug it out. I mean, actually, the inspectors will be like, I don't test that. Find somebody else who will test that. A luxury home will tend to have a Lutron, some kind of system that is the brains for the house. And those are something that you would have to get a particular electrician probably, or whoever put it in. Often I will start with a home inspection from Jay or somebody. And more often than not on a luxury home, or actually on most of my houses that are more complicated, we probably have about 10 inspections. I mean, I don't stop. I mean, the general inspection is one. You springboard off the general and he goes, you might want to check the HVAC or it's a little bit older. I tend to have a home inspection. We do a sewer lateral inspection. If there's a well, we have a well inspection. If there's a septic, you do a septic inspection. I tend to have an electrician come in. I already said the plumber, if needed. And it depends on the age of the house and how much, if somebody's done remodeling, if they can provide invoices and who did the work. And I'm sure in all of your areas, there are people that have great reputations that do work and people that don't have the best reputation. So you do often want to check on it regardless of people have a good or bad reputation, because you'd be amazed at even the people with a good reputation sometimes miss a beat when they were installing something, and that's why there's a leak in the bathroom.
To jump in really quickly, when you are listing a home and you have that initial inspection done, do you automatically have all of the other inspections done, or just if something pops? Just
No,
in case?
I don't do all the other inspections, and that's a very good question. I just had a home that it needed work. We knew it needed work. I had the home inspection done. We knew it needed a roof. I did encourage my seller to replace the roof, because at the price point of the house, I knew that it would be somebody that was going to be getting a loan, and they would not have the money to replace the roof. And that would be something that they may have the down payment and they may qualify for a larger loan, but they're not going to have extra income to fix the roof. So to answer your question, anything that would come up on the home inspection, I would then go and have estimates done. There was a bit of a foundation issue. So I had my foundation guy come out, and I think that was $8,000. There was past work that needed to be done. There was $10,000. So I have the inspections done and I get estimates. So if we're not going to do the work, I want a buyer to know how much it's going to cost them to complete the job.
And so when it comes to the home inspection, who pays for the home inspection? Is that the buyer or the seller? And I'm asking.
Okay. When you're representing a listing, the seller pays for any inspections done up front are prepared and paid for by the seller. If a buyer, you get under contract and the buyer comes along and says, well, I'm going to do my inspections, the buyer is responsible for those. And that's how we typically do it in the state of California. It is customary and usual in the state of California. We have termites and we have pest inspections. It is customary that the seller pays for the pest inspection. It is negotiable who is going to pay for the work. So there's a difference between who pays for the inspection and who pays for the work done. Those are two different issues.
And so you mentioned the one home where you got the estimates on the work that was done. And I'm sure that it's situational, but in a situation like that, do you recommend that the seller make the repairs going into it, or that you negotiate that and the price of the home?
It depends on the situation. The last one that I just referenced, it was a trust sale. There were 3 children, 3 adult children inheriting the money. There was a trustee that was running the ship. And in that case, there was a lot of deferred maintenance. So I went in and I said, look, we're not going to fix everything, because in reality, somebody's going to come in and remodel this whole house.
Right.
What we're going to do is I'm going to put it out there on your behalf as it's livable while you're getting your plans and deciding how you're going to remodel the kitchen and whatnot. So in that case, we re-landscaped. It was well over an acre. We re-landscaped. I cleaned up 10 years of growth, so you could actually see the mountain view. We could see things. You could see the fruit orchard. I had him do the work. I had the whole house painted inside and out. The brick walkway to the front door was hard to walk on. And all I could think of is, oh my gosh, somebody's going to come with high heels and they're going to get stuck in between. I don't need that. So I had my handyman relay the same bricks. Simple things like that. In terms of what I left for a buyer to do, I gave them, you've got some pest work here. You've got some foundation work you need to fix. But I had the estimates for them so that they were not going in blind. I priced the house as such that I would get more than one offer. This is 2 months ago. I priced it so we would get more than one offer, and people could go in with as short a contingency period they needed, whether it be for a loan or inspections. But I took the fear out of how much should we offer for this house. And I want to speak to another example. I have a buyer, now I'm on the other end. I have a buyer looking at a house up in the Riviera, which is beautiful here. And it's an expensive house, and it's $9 million. It's a 90-year-old house. And my buyer said, well, I don't want to write an offer until I have the seller disclosures. And I said, well, I can't force the listing agent to make the seller do the disclosures up front. We'll have a contingency period of which we will be able to look at seller disclosures and do our own inspections. But the seller disclosures will come to you in that time period. And he said, but I don't know how much to offer. And I said, well, in my professional opinion, it's going to go in this range. So as long as we make an offer in the range that's acceptable and we get a counter or acceptable, then we will do that due diligence. He had a very hard time going forward, and they did receive another offer, and we're out of that game. So it's not just inspections that I would like to do up front. It's important your sellers do their disclosures because it also allows, the more information you give a buyer, the less fear factor they go into it. Most people are buying the largest asset of their life. And, you need to help them and assure them. I often say to people, I'm not selling real estate. I am helping people buy a dream, sell a dream. I'm helping people achieve something in their life. It happens to be in the real estate area. So you have to be very responsive to people and think about what their needs are going to be before you get to the table, before they come to the front door. Help them. And
Absolutely.
that's why I do all these inspections and whatnot.
Yeah, transparency is so important.
It's great. And you're dealing with people's emotions. How can I help this emotionally situation work? By helping them with inspections. Get them up front with your listing agent and so that it helps the buyer.
So if you were to do a upfront inspection, that the seller provided inspection, or even for a buyer, and you have multiple inspections done.
Right.
So let's say you have just your general home inspection done. The property has a pool and spa area. Right. You have a pool inspection done. Let's say it does have need a well and septic. Do you try and schedule all of those at the same time?
Yes, it's just easier for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
It's easier because it's a time frame. Some people, not all our houses are vacant. There are people that live there. Every time you have an inspection, they feel obligated to leave the house. So I do try. And the other thing that I do is if I feel there's a strong possibility that I'm going to get my offer accepted, and it probably will be a multiple offer situation, I will call my inspectors a few days before and say, hey, can you reserve, what's your first available after next Thursday? If I know that's when they're responding. And I will try and actually line up my inspections based on when I think I'll be under contract. So I'm out the door, not wasting time. Because in California, by default, our inspection period is 17 days. I don't know about you guys in North Carolina and in Texas.
Is this to get someone to come to your place? It's 17 days?
So your option period?
We have our option period is 17 days to look and do our due diligence. And yet, if you're in a competitive arena, I have to write my offer. I only need 5 days. I just need 5 days. I need 4 days.
That's us here in San Antonio. It's like 4 to 5 days typically.
I have everybody lined up already. So I already have the appointments made. So that's what I would recommend also. So you guys have 4 to 5 days is that in your contract?
But it's always negotiable.
Right.
Average is like 4 to 5 for most. Sometimes we'll see up to a week, but it's rarely ever over a week.
So
for option period.
So it's not by default in your residential purchase agreement. It's whatever time period the buyer's agent writes in.
Correct. Mm-hmm.
Okay. In our California form, which when I started 22 years ago was, 3 pages. Our residential purchase agreement is now 16 pages.
Oh my goodness. Sorry, I don't mean to laugh. That's just so intense.
Yes, California is a litigious state. So
ours is 10. So it's 10, about
okay.
there.
The new contracts just came out in July, and I haven't seen the new one yet. Actually, I'm doing some education on that tomorrow, but we're at 14 pages.
Okay, so I'm not that off. Our default is you have 17 days to do your inspections. Seller has 7 days to deliver their seller disclosures, but you have the right to reduce or increase any of those times.
Wow. So
But if you're
does-
in a
does the-
competitive market, reduce the time, guys.
Mhm.
Does the price of the offer of the home change based on the inspection and the work that is going to need to be done?
Yes, yes. So what happens is, so you negotiate, you get under contract, you get your escrow up. We have escrows in California. We don't use lawyers. A lot of my clients from outside of California will have a lawyer look over everything they do, particularly in the high end. They don't do anything without their lawyer. But you will after that, let's say 17 days or 10 days, whatever that time period is, and I gather all of my reports. I found out that, who knew that the bathtub is leaking and there's dry rot and blah, blah, blah. So you get inspections and how much it's going to cost. I put together a summary, and you either offer to the seller, okay, we would like you to repair all of these things in the time period, or we'd like you to give us a credit, or we would like you to reduce the price. So there's another negotiation time period during the escrow.
And is that something that you do? You work on the negotiations as well?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I do. Absolutely. That's why they're hiring me. That's why they're hiring all of you. Typically, as a realtor, your job is to represent you have a fiduciary responsibility. We all do, to represent them to the highest and best that you can. And yeah, it's up to you to negotiate the best deal you can. And I also believe in being fair. I don't believe in, handling a buyer or a seller. It depends on what side I'm on. I think fair is always the way to go.
Yeah, I think if we approach it that it's a win-win for everybody involved, then that's the best. And like you said earlier, transparency. So many real estate deals fall apart in the repairs negotiation part of the deal. And if everybody goes into it with as much transparency as possible, you're going to try and eliminate some of that.
And I'm going to give you an example right now that I was not part of this transaction. I showed the house. My client really went back and forth. It was, at the time we looked at it, was 16,500,000. And we passed. I talked to an agent that had it under contract, and they moved on because he happened to ask a question. He just happened to ask a question of the geologist they had out. We always have we do a lot of geology reports here. And the listing agent did not know what I'm going to tell you. Nobody knew, but the geologist knew. And the buyer's agent said to the geologist, why do you think it's funny? They built the pool. They didn't put it right in front of the house. They put it to the left side in front of the ADU. And the geologist knew the answer. He goes, oh, that's because there's an abandoned oil tank in the backyard of the house. Nobody told anybody that. The sellers didn't disclose it to their agents. Well, poof, he went away. The price is now the house is now on the market for a reduced price. And the difference is, if that had been disclosed up front and they had gotten the information on how do you take out an abandoned oil well, it could have been handled so differently.
Uh-huh.
I had that situation. I had a beachfront property, $20 million. This is several years ago, and it was several parcels. And they actually had their own gas tank, and it would have been abandoned. And I was like, oh boy, we had all of the inspections done. We made sure that it had been abandoned. So when the buyer came, we could say, yes, there was, but it's been taken care of. It's been remediated. You don't have to worry about it. So the issue there was a non-issue. So that is the best example I can give you of why do you disclose.
Our listing agreement asks if there is an oil drum, a buried oil drum on the property in North Carolina.
See, that is a very rare thing in California. So that wouldn't be something normal. So that goes to the other point I want to make is I don't know about you guys, but agents will come into town here from out of town, and the numbers are big. So they want, instead of referring it to a local agent, they want to come up the coast and handle it themselves. They don't know the geography. They don't know the people to use. You are doing such harm, such a disservice to your buyer. So for you guys, that's a normal in your form. That wouldn't be normal for us. That's why you're always best to use local people that know what they're talking about.
What are some typical things that come up on a luxury inspection report that wouldn't come up on a regular inspection report?
It really, you guys, is the same thing. The house is just bigger. It's not, the only thing, we talked about the central vac. You don't find that in maybe smaller homes. The brain system where it's worked, Lutron or Centron or whichever one, they always have ghosts in them. There's always some kind of audio equipment that comes along with it. The audio equipment is something that you always have to look at, and those systems where you one button turns off all the lights. Well, you love that when you have 8,000 square foot house. You hit one button, all the lights go off, and then you walk around and there are 3 lights that won't go off. So those are the kind of things they're and you just can't find it. There's always a ghost in those systems. So it's not. You also, for us in our area, we would always do a geological report. So you just need to make sure you get all the correct reports done.
Tell us about the geological report. What does that entail?
Well, you get the geologist. Well, we have unfortunately only 1 or 2 geologists in town, and he's usually booked. What it entails is getting a geologist, somebody who's actually bona fide, and they can go back in history of the earth to see what is there. Is this an area that has what kind of soils? Is it bedrock? Is it sand? Is it going to slide? Is it water? Are you sitting on a water area? You just find out what you're dealing with in terms of soils. I have a listing right now on the beach, and it's on a bluff top. And the first people want to say is, it's it's a beautiful, you have the view of the ocean from here to there. And it's on this, bluff, and people will say, is the bluff going to slide? And the geologist said, no. I have the reports back to 1940 or 1900, because he'll go back in history and say, this is where your earthquake maps are. People care about earthquake, slides, what kind of soil you're on. So that's really what a geology report's about.
Does the geology report affect the decision whether or not people will buy the home based on what its foundation is?
All day long. And some people don't have experience with that, and they're nervous, so they walk away. I had the property where people were not from California. They were not familiar with anything. They were nervous, and the woman kept asking our geologist, and you have to know him to know his personality. And she kept saying, but there's never been a. He goes, no, this property is great. It's perfect. It's great. She goes, but could it slide? He goes, well, yeah, I can see in 1930, way down almost when you got to the beach, because we have ocean, we have beach access. And he goes, I can see here it slid probably, but there was so much growth on the property. He goes, it's not sliding. And she asked and asked repeatedly. He goes, but could it ever slide? He goes, sure, it could slide tomorrow. And he was being facetious. They walked. There's nothing I can do about
the
that.
The sun may not rise tomorrow. There is a possibility.
Thank you so much. That's exactly my point. So
that's like saying, though, is there a hurricane? Is there a possibility that a hurricane could?
That's what I say to people. Pick your poison. Yeah. We could have earthquakes. We have, as you know, we have fires in California. There are people have hurricanes. You have tornadoes. Pick the.
We get a lot of hail damage here. A lot of hail damage.
My husband rented a car once. I think he was in Texas, and he got in a hailstorm. He goes, he got back to the airport. He said every car was lined up. They all had just, bullet holes. Pick your poison.
Right. Well, anything can happen at any time, but that's why you do these inspections and why you gather this information and learn as much as you can about the property, so that you can say it could happen, but in all likelihood, it's probably not going to happen.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So but I can't stress enough, and you guys know this. You're in the business. Get the inspections. Get them done. If you don't get them, just get them done.
Now, again, this would be a blanket statement, but would you say that your high net worth clients are more pick apart the inspection report more than your other clients, or do you think it's more of an issue or less of an issue, or they're more focused on the inspection and the repairs than other transactions you have?
No, it's personality.
Yeah.
It's really personality. It's not, no, it's personality. That's really what it's more about.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm dealing with first time buyers now, and they read every word, and I have luxury that, like, just tell me what to say. But I have luxury that read everything, and I have people, no, it's human nature. Humanity is humanity. It does not matter how many dollars are behind their name.
We did a final walkthrough on a home yesterday, and the only thing that the buyer was concerned about at all on the final walkthrough was if the ceiling fan in the guest bedroom worked.
Right. See that, because he knew
That was it.
He or she was having a guest coming to stay with them after they closed escrow. That mattered.
We've got a comment from Joe Carrison. He says, "This is so helpful. I never knew how much you could learn from a home inspection."
Oh, yeah. And well, thank you. Thank you for saying that, Joe. The other thing that can happen, and I'm in the progress of this now. I had worked with a buyer. I was her third agent, and I worked with her for a year and a half, and we found the perfect house. And I said, "You've got to fly in. This is your house." And we did every single inspection possible. We also had the inspections from when the seller bought the house. So we had her inspections, then we had all the ones that we did. Lo and behold, in California, we've had a lot of rain this year. And it was obvious there had been some water damage in one of the walls. And it was disclosed. It was disclosed by the former seller and the current seller. And I had a mold water investigation done. He, ran along the wall. There was no water found. And lo and behold, between the time we closed escrow and we gave the seller a rent back, we also had a lot more rain. There's now water found in the wall. Well, was that there before or after? So you see, at least we have the reports to go back to. We know who did the work. But even with all the inspections you do,
There's still room for error.
Was that a stucco home? Are a lot of your homes stucco?
yeah, they are. They're one-sided. Yeah, go on.
A lot of the homes here in Texas are not. And that's one of our biggest questions for people here in San Antonio and in the greater Texas area is what do we look for in an inspection when it comes to a stucco home? Should we be concerned? Does it need to be maintenance? What do we need to know about stucco? It's fairly new to the area, within about 15 years for most new builders here. And so a lot of people are very scared about stucco homes here unless they're from California. And then they're like, oh, this is, it's easy. So what would you say about stucco homes?
Nothing. I mean, you're going to have cracks. There's always going to be hairline cracks. And it doesn't mean that you're sitting on an earthquake zone or a fault zone. It's nature. After houses are built, they settle. It's just natural that they'll settle. So you're going to have some cracks here and there. Now, if you have huge cracks and or if you see that, like, let's say you have some stairs that have separated, stairs up to the front door and they've separated from the house. Well, the obvious things, that you see with your eye, you want to look for. But stucco, they're wood framed houses and they have stucco on the outside of them. What is your normal build?
Normally the clients that are scared, they do see that external crack on the stucco, and they're really, really concerned that it's a major foundation issue.
No,
and because it's so new here, it's very difficult for them to wrap their mind around that it's not a foundation issue at all.
No, it's not. And it's just the house settled. The house settles and they have some cracks. If you have a ton of cracks and they're all and if they're all coming, and typically they come from like the window or something like that, where there's been joints put together. But what I would do is if that's a new product that the buyers are not aware of, I would get a home inspector that is really aware of stucco and how it reacts. And I would have that if I had a listing and it was a stucco house, I'd make sure I had the contractor who knows all about stucco speak exactly to that.
So smart. So smart.
Yeah,
Right.
in North Carolina, I'm not sure everywhere else, but in North Carolina, probably about 30 years ago, builders were using synthetic stucco, and it became a nightmare. Water would get behind the stucco, between the stucco and the building material, and homes had to be completely stripped of the stucco. And so when those folks went to sell the homes, they did provide an inspection saying that their synthetic stucco home had been inspected and had been given, clear bill of health to eliminate those concerns and fears. But so the people in your area may have heard some rumblings about stucco being bad, and that may stem from the synthetic stucco back in the 90s, I think in the 90s.
Interesting. Well, I know that there was a time period that there was, oh gosh, not plywood, I guess, for lack of remembering the word, plywood that was coming out of China. That was
the pressed board.
Press board, thank you, the press board.
With the moisture.
With the moisture. Thank you very much. That's what I was trying to think of. So you have to be, those are the kind of things. And that's the other thing. I try and stay on top of my whole industry. I mean, it's hard to, but I read a lot. I like that. I want to know, gee, is that the era that press board would have been used in this house, or things? It's just stay on top of stuff.
Angela?
Thank you. My question is from the house cleaning industry. I know that it wasn't just stucco, but it was like popcorn ceilings and stuff that back in the 70s brought with it the asbestos. And I know that there were tests that as house cleaners we would go in and we would need it to be tested before we would be able to clean the ceilings, because then it would trigger the asthma or allergy related symptoms in people. And so I'm curious if you have had anything like that in the California area, Maureen, as well as being in like a seaside area where maybe there's more moisture in the air and it would contribute more to mold or things like that, that again, we'd have to have tested before we could do move in, move out cleans.
Well, all day long, yes, we're a seaside town, we have moisture. I probably have a mold test on 80% of the houses that I represent as a buyer or seller. And it's more often than not, it's easily remediated. It's not always cheap, but you can fix it. And it's just when the walls get wet, wood gets wet, you can get dry rot. So you got to open it up. You got to put in new, drywall, put it all back together. That's what's expensive. So yeah, we do those. And also we do have popcorn ceiling steel. And there's two ways that you can remediate that. You either hire a licensed contractor who's licensed to remove the popcorn, which has the asbestos, or you keep it there and it's encapsulated. If it's not touched and it's encapsulated, the asbestos particles are not going to be coming in the air. But if you start to see where it's cracked or whatever, it's already had exposure, so you have to get someone to remove it, and that becomes a negotiable item.
Mm-hmm. Is that expensive where you are?
It's another cost to do the inspection. No, to remove it depends on how big a space. Usually, it's on the ceiling. I had one house the house at the beach I sold, and it was in 1930s, really pretty. It had lead paint. Oh no, we needed to test to see if it had lead paint. Mm-hmm. So I had to have a certified painter take chips from the windowsills and send it to a factory to find out if it had lead in it. It did, and I don't remember it actually. I don't think it did. But before we had them paint, because I was going to freshen up the house, we didn't want to paint over it in case. I never had my lead base. I never had my paint tested before.
There's all kinds of stuff that pops up at you.
Oh, no kidding. Because let me tell you something, and you guys will speak to this as well. When a seller is selling a house, let's say the light bulb is out. I'm making a very simple example. The light bulb is going to be $2.50 to repair. When a buyer comes and does an inspection, the light bulb's out, it's going to be $10 to fix that light bulb. So,
Well, and
Yes.
are there electrical problems?
right.
I mean, it gets astronomical and scary and huge right
Yeah.
away.
You need an
So you know what I'm
electrician out to
talking about.
test it, and
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like a buyer's expenses. And I'm probably, you know, have done that too. It's more expensive when a buyer gets estimates than when a seller just does the work and gets the estimate.
Right.
Do you give your sellers a checklist of things to do prior to the inspection, prior to
Yes.
putting their home on the market? All of those little tiny touches that you were
Yes.
just speaking of.
Yes. And I will tell you twofold why you want to do that. One, you want to bring it to their awareness, all the different inspections you can do. And then you have them sign the form. They say, no, I'm going to do 1 through 7. I don't want to do 9, but I'll do 11 and 12. So, okay. And they sign the form and we do all the inspections they want. You go under contract. 9 that they chose not to do becomes a problem. Why didn't you have me do that? Well, remember that form I had you sign and I showed you everything and I highlighted probably what you should and you opted to do this and not that. You didn't want to do that one. So there's a reason why I have that form. It's not only for protection of the client, but it's for protection for you as the real estate agent and for your company you work for.
I love that.
Absolutely.
So I have a situation right now with a listing, a luxury home, and the home is in pretty good condition, but it is requiring a $20,000+ retaining wall in the backyard. And so, what would your recommendations be for that? Do you think that's something that should be taken care of and addressed before putting the home on the market, or wait until it's brought up at a later time?
Are you representing the buyer or
seller.
the listing? The seller. Okay. In the state, I'll speak to the state of California. Any information that you are aware of as a seller, you need to disclose.
Of course.
So I have a house right now that I'm representing a buyer and the sellers they're flippers. So they bought this and it's in a slide zone area, which already I don't like. And I've got my geologist, he's going to give us his report. And there are 2 retaining walls that need to be fixed in the front of the house and in the back of the house. They did not do a soils report. They didn't care. The people they bought it from didn't do one. They did find out that 2 of the retaining walls they need to be fixed. And they are going to go ahead and fix them with a structural engineer. You need to have a structural do it. If it were me,
Mm-hmm.
I would absolutely have my structural engineer come out and give his blessing on the wall. And I would get an estimate. And then tell your seller, if he or she chooses not to do the work, that it will be a negotiable item. Or you can say, okay, let's go on the market at this price. And when a buyer comes along, you can say, well, we priced it like this, knowing you're going to have a $20,000 cost to fix the wall.
That's fair.
You can go either way.
Yeah, I like that.
But you have to tee your seller up. Don't be an ostrich here.
Right.
No, that's where you get in trouble. That is where you get in trouble. So I would recommend getting a structural engineer out, getting a GC to give you a cost, how much it is to replace it. Do you need a permit for it? Do the legwork, because a buyer's agent is going to move on to the next house because they're looking for an easy deal to close.
For sure.
So do the work up front. Preparation is 80% of it.
Yes.
Because if you don't have all that information and there's another house that, oh, gee, it happened to come on the market down the street, that buyer's just going to take that buyer's agent is just going to take them and plop them and walk them down the street. Why lose them? Do the preparation up front. Don't lose the potential buyer.
It's great advice. Thank you so much.
That is so good. So good advice. Thank you.
It's yeah.
So I have a California question, or you're being a seaside town question. So being there with the moisture in the air, the salt air, do your systems have a shorter lifespan? Your HVAC systems, those sorts of things?
Actually, I'll answer that. Yes and no. Our HVAC systems, let's say an HVAC system, your heating and air conditioning, your HVAC system typically can last, let's say 20 to 30 years. Because we're such a moderate temperature here, let's say they last 20 years, our HVACs last 30 years. So the HVAC system tends to last longer here because we don't use them as much. If you are right next to the beach, you have to know that the elements are going to impact, particularly outside, not steel. Yes, it is going to, you get more corrosion. You get a lot of corrosion. You just need to be aware of it.
Yeah.
But our HVACs last longer.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Here in Texas, we run our ACs 11 months a year.
No, we don't. I mean, in fact, we don't even have most of the houses here don't have. Now they're starting to put, because I hate to say with global warming and whatnot, you're starting to get more air conditioning put into houses. But people come and they'll look at houses. Doesn't matter if it's 2 million, 20 million. There's no screens and there's no air conditioning. And people say, wait, there's no screen. I said, I know we don't have any bugs. So we don't have bugs, and the air conditioning now is becoming about maybe 4 days out of the year you need to have it.
I miss that. Moving down from the Pacific Northwest, I miss that.
Well, that was very that's cold up there.
Yeah, I'm jealous. It's 96 degrees here, and we have bugs the size of cars in North Carolina. So, yeah.
I've seen larger critters this year than I have in the last 7 years combined that I've been here, and they are large and happy, lively, healthy critters down here. You could capture a spider, and it could be your pet for sure.
Oh.
So I have another inspection question. So, Maureen, when you have the inspections done, you mentioned earlier that it can be an inconvenience for the seller because they do feel obligated to leave the home. I encourage my sellers to leave the home when there's an inspection done. But when you do have an inspection, who all do you have there? Is it you there with your buyer clients?
I am at every inspection.
Right.
Because that's why they hired me. Now, right. I do have a team. My team will also help me. Well, they'll be at the inspection, but I am the really critical inspections. I'm there. I've got to hear what they're saying. My sellers, a lot of my clients don't live in Santa Barbara. It will be a second home for them. And so they are just like, no, just FaceTime me when you're done, or show me what they said, or get me on the phone when the inspector is doing this. And I make a point of getting my sellers, or my buyers, hey, can you be available at 1:30? That's about when we'll be done. I would like you to hear the wrap up. And so they typically are not here. If I'm representing a seller, I definitely want them to hear what the inspection have to say. And I will say, I don't have a problem with buyers and sellers. Well, it depends a little on the personalities, but for the most part, I don't mind if buyers and sellers meet each other, and I'll tell you why. It's very difficult for a seller to say to a buyer that they've met and have had a nice conversation with when they get that buyer's inspection and request, and it's a reasonable request. It's hard for that seller not to say they won't do something. And it's also difficult for a buyer who just had a lovely conversation with the seller, who promised they're going to leave that chair in the corner that they were oohing on over, but they weren't going to leave it, but they're going to give it to them now, and other stuff. It's hard for a buyer to over ask because the seller has already been so kind to them. So again, remember when I said I'm not selling real estate, it's an emotional business. When you have met somebody, it's harder to be mean to them, not unless you just don't like them.
That's a very good point. That's very
I
true.
really like that. That's neat.
And I didn't come up with that myself. I had a business coach a long time ago. And I still have a business coach, but I learned that from my first coach. She said, let them meet, because it's hard to be mean to somebody that you met, whether you're on the selling side or buying side.
I've had some great friendships come from buyers and sellers meeting, that they've developed good relationships and friendships, and that is good advice. And real estate's a relationship business all the way around.
Absolutely is. So, yeah.
It's interesting that you said you're always at inspections. Here in Texas, we used to do that. And there was so many issues with agents trying to coerce the inspectors on either side that the state has asked us not to be at any of the inspections anymore.
Oh,
And
no.
so as agents, kind of across the board, they say, please do not go to your inspections. If your buyer wants to go with the inspector, that's fine. But as an agent, please do not go. So
I
it's interesting you said that, because I used to go to all of them as well. And yeah, they don't allow us to do that anymore. So
Wow.
That's just shocking to me. I mean, buyers, they look at some people haven't bought a house for 20 years, and some people it's the first time they bought. They don't know half of what the inspector is talking about.
Oh, they don't know most of what the inspector's talking about, which
Right,
is where we step in and we get to go through every word of the entire 54-page inspection report at
But-
11:30 p.m. with our clients
But I
so that
find
they
that,
can sleep well.
I mean, I think that's sad that's that way, because often I have been at an inspection where the seller, the inspector is coming up with a conclusion that if the seller is standing there, he can say, oh no, I repaired that and I did blah, blah, blah. They're like, oh, okay, I got it. Inspectors are also human. They only know what they know from their playbook. And sometimes somebody may have done it, put a diverter in a different way, and he didn't realize that's how it had to go because there wasn't room to put it in the right way. Oh, okay, I got it. I have had more luck not convincing an inspector, but explaining. Having the seller, when a seller's there and can explain something, they're like, oh, okay, I got it.
I had a situation like that recently under the home. It looked the pest inspector found what he thought was powder post beetle residue, and the the seller, who was a general contractor, went in and explained to him, no, that's not the situation at all. So it is again, relationships, communication,
Yeah.
and being the one to bridge that gap. It's really important. And I lean very heavily on a lot of my inspectors to tell me, okay, yeah, I found this, I put it on the report, but it is not a big deal. Or, yeah, this is what I'd really focus on, and rely a lot on their expertise too.
Yeah.
So I've get so much benefit from going to the inspection. So I would
Oh,
I would hate to not.
if I were you guys, I would rebut that. I would say, I'm surprised that your Association of Realtors goes along with that.
we've just had so many lawsuits in Texas. There's been so many complaints over the past years. It's just gotten crazy. And so I don't know that it's necessarily law, but it's definitely known fact to please not go
It's very frowned upon.
At every price point.
at every price point.
Wow.
They say, hey, agents, please do not go to inspections, just across the board. We're begging you, do not do it. Again, I don't know that that's law, but there's not a broker out there that doesn't say, we beg you, do not go. So,
Wow.
Wow.
yeah. Well,
Well-
what would you say are some of the, maybe just the biggest issues kind of across the board to look for in an inspection that buyers should be aware of? What are kind of the major, 3 to 5 major issues that you should always be aware of?
Well, I think start with health and safety. What are the health and safety items and I don't mean health and safety like, the house is built in the 60s and the rails used to be put like this. Now it says they have to put this close. I don't mean health and safety like that. I mean, there's mold, there's definite mold smell. I mean, health and safety to me are things that have to be, those are non-negotiable. I want a seller to fix those. The other stuff becomes negotiable. My top 5, I don't really have. I mean, if there's a system in the house that's unusual, get it checked out. As I said, the septic, if there's a well, do your home inspection. The home inspection is like going to a general practitioner doctor.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes, your heart kind of skips a few beats, or I noticed this. Then he sends you to specialists. And that's what I do. I always start with a general doctor.
Yes.
And I read the report, and then I go to my specialists.
That's a great way to put it. I've learned so
Yes.
much about home inspections today. This has been fascinating. We're in this business every day, but every day you learn so much.
Yeah, no, I agree. Well, hopefully you did. And I learned also. I learned stuff as well.
Well, great. Well, share with our audience so they can learn where they can find you. I know you're in California, but I'm sure you're connected all over the country.
I am connected. I work with Sotheby's International Realty. We have globally, we have 28,000 agents. I am, as I said, in California. I have a network of agents across the nation. So I network with them a lot. So I know them very well. I'm here in Santa Barbara. Love to help anybody if you want to come. Rentals, I don't really do, but I know people that can help with that. Any information, you want to come on vacation, I'll tell you where to stay and what to do. I always consider myself more of an ambassador. I lived in Los Angeles for pretty much my whole life until we moved up here. And I was a buyer, and I know what it feels like. And I know what it feels like to move somewhere that you haven't been to before. So happy to help. My phone number, I don't know if you put cards up at the end.
Well, we have links in the show notes to everybody's contact information.
Great. So if anybody has any questions, I'm very free with my knowledge. I've always believed that rising tides lift all boats.
Love it.
So I like sharing my knowledge. What I am sensitive to sharing is my time. And because I can't get that back. So that's when, I work with people I like to. So
well, we've enjoyed
anybody that is just appreciative. I'm happy to work with.
Well, thank you for sharing your knowledge and your time today. And if everybody else, if we could go around the room and tell everyone where they can find us. Regina
ReginaBRealty@gmail.com. And I'm on every social platform.
Aaron.
Yes, Maureen, thank you so much for joining us today. It's so fun that we got to chat with you and would love to refer people up your way. Anybody that we have in the area, we would love, love, love to refer. We also only work with clients that we absolutely love and adore. We won't work with anybody that's got a bad attitude or is not honest. And so we would love to send anyone in this area that might be moving up your direction.
Vice versa. I actually don't know anybody in San Antonio.
You do now.
Well, you do now.
I mean, I'm sure there's an office there, but and that's the thing. I work with agents across the nation that I really like. They don't have to be in brand.
Yeah. Well, I really like the way you work as well and how thorough you are prior to actually going online. We work a lot the same way. We'll work for our clients, like you said, 80% of that up front. Before we ever go on the market. We've done, a lot of that. And so I think we would have fun working our clients together because we work a lot the same way. So thank you so much. We so appreciate you. You're wonderful.
Thank you.
And Angela Brown, where can everybody find you?
Well, thank you. I'm at Ask Angela Brown on all of the social medias. And again, I'm here voting and agreeing with Maureen on that mold thing. That is an absolute must before you buy or sell a home. So double check the molds.
And I'm Brooke Bryant in Charlotte, North Carolina at Ask Brooke Bryant. If I know any of my clients who are going to California, definitely going to send them your way, Maureen, and you guys in Texas. So this was so much fun. Thank you for sharing your time and your knowledge with us. And we look forward to seeing everybody next week.
Thanks, everybody. Stay cool.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.